The Subaru Impreza has been on our roads for 30 years, and the formula hasn't really changed much in all of that time. Unlike a lot of small cars, it hasn't really grown. And I think this new 6th generation model is the best looking Impreza yet. I'm Alex Dalrymple, and this is my channel where I review new cars every week. It's great for people who want to get a new car and don't know which way to turn. I can help you out with a simple, straightforward, easy to understand review. To make sure you don't miss one, please hit the subscribe button down below, the notification bell, and if you enjoy the video, I'd love a like. The 2024 Impreza is fantastic value. In fact, it's the only affordable small car that comes with all-wheel drive, and the new redesigned look makes it look far sleeker and a lot more streamlined than it did before, with new redesigned headlights. Everything's been kind of rounded and sort of pulled back and facelifted a little bit. It's quite a strong look. 18-inch alloys here on the top spec S model. This car rides really quite low to the ground. In fact, so low I've actually bottomed out on a couple of speed humps as I've been driving around town, which is not great. This top spec S model also comes with a fairly small sunroof, but it does liven things up a little bit inside the cabin. Moving around to the back here, we've got the tailgate, which isn't powered unfortunately, but it does have a fairly small storage space, only 291 litres. If you knock down the rear seats, you can get up to 900 litres of storage space. Being a Subaru, of course, we've got a Boxer engine. It's a 2-litre, 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated petrol engine that outputs 115 kilowatts and 196 newton meters of torque. Not huge numbers. Straight line performance is not what this car does best. It's all-wheel drive and it has better grip and stability in the wet. Fuel economy clocks in at an average of 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres on a combined cycle. The interior design of most Subarus is becoming more and more the same. If you were to open your eyes suddenly, you might not be able to tell whether you were in a Crosstrek or an Outback or a Forester or an Impreza. They all look very similar, and that's not actually a bad thing because it's bringing some really good tech from some of those higher spec cars into smaller ones like this. The centerpiece, of course, is the 11-inch infotainment screen, and I don't mean this in any disparaging way, but it is almost as simple to use as a children's toy iPad. It has big, colourful graphics. It's really easy to find things in a hurry, and it's really simple to use, which is great when you're trying to make adjustments on the go. In this top spec S model, we get wireless Apple CarPlay, native navigation, and a 10-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, which actually sounds really good. The downside of something like this, of course, is that with everything packed into this screen, you can't make adjustments without taking your eyes off the road. Everything, including the climate control, runs through here, although you can make quick adjustments to the temperature and the volume of the sound system here with the controls on the outside of the screen. Moving down, we've got USB-A, USB-C, external audio input, wireless phone charging here in the top spec S model. The lower console, pretty straightforward with the gear shifter. These seat heating controls look like they've just been ripped out of a truck or something. They're very kind of rudimentary, not a lot of design going on there. Cup holders are a good size, 12-volt outlet, a big center console bin with a nice soft lid. There's no head-up display in this car. Like all Subarus, it has a row of coloured LEDs that light up to tell you when you're veering out of the lane or if a collision is imminent. The instrument cluster, yeah, look, I don't love it. It is a hybrid analog digital unit with a small digital screen in the middle. It does show you some useful information on there. The two big analog dials on the outside, to be honest, I never really look at because the speed is displayed digitally in the middle. I like digital screens personally, so yeah, it is a bit of a throwback having analog dials here. The seats here in the top spec S model are leather. The driver gets full electric adjustment with lumbar support. The seating position is not too high in the cabin. It feels nice and sporty. Good visibility all round. The rear vision mirror comes with automatic dimming, and the wing mirrors also have blind spot monitors. The steering wheel has a good feel to it. It's leather wrapped with stitching. There's a lot of buttons on here, but Subaru have been doing that for quite some time. There's also paddle shifters to change gears, although of course being a CVT there really are no gears, but nice to have them anyway. The back seat of the Impreza is quite impressive, pun intended, and at 190 centimetres tall behind my own seating position, I'm actually fine. Like, there's plenty of room. I don't want to say there's a lot of room, but there's enough room. My knees just touching the seat in front, but that's certainly not a deal breaker. There's loads of headroom too, and for a hatchback with a sort of slightly sloping roof, that is very impressive. Seats nice and comfortable, leather benches. We've got a armrest here with cup holders, USB-A and USB-C ports. If I had to sit behind myself on a long trip in the back of this car, I'd be just fine. The naturally aspirated petrol engine in this car does sound just a little tinny. It kind of actually reminds me of a 1980s Mazda 323 or Ford Laser. It just has a very distinctive engine note that immediately sounded familiar to me. And that's fine, it's just a bit of a throwback. But it is quite responsive, and while the power isn't overwhelming, it's certainly adequate. So straight line performance is really not what this car is about, but having all-wheel drive, you do have superior grip and stability, especially in the wet and if you're driving on an unsealed road. But unlike a lot of Subarus, you're not going off-road in this car. It's just too low to the ground for that. Safety gear includes auto adaptive headlights, facial recognition with drowsiness alert, and auto vehicle hold, amongst all the other regular safety gear that you'd expect to find. Visibility in the cabin is generally very good, but there is a bit of a blind spot here just in the rear vision mirror where there's this big bit of molded black plastic that houses a number of the forward-facing sensors, and this whole sort of cluster together does block out a lot of your view of what's going on the left-hand side of the car, and that's a bit of a problem if you're coming into a corner, a blind corner in particular, because you just really can't see a lot of what's going on there. Same with pedestrian crossings. If there's a pedestrian waiting to cross the road on the left-hand side of the car, you might not really see them at first, and you might just sort of need to duck your head down to get a good view of them. There are two drive modes, S and I. They're controlled by the buttons here on the steering wheel. Because this car is a CVT, there are no gears. It's not really holding on to gears longer, but it is kind of making the engine rev a little harder when it's in S mode, and that does improve performance somewhat. Mostly it's just noise. Is the Impreza a turn-back car? A car so good looking you have to turn back and look at it after you parked it? Well, it looks good in red, I'll give it that, but it really doesn't look radically different to the model it replaced, and it's not a very daring design, so no, I don't think it's a turn-back car. The facial recognition and drowsiness alert system does keep a pretty close eye on your eye, so if you happen to look away for a little while, you do start getting alerts on the dashboard telling you to stay alert and keep your eyes on the road, which is a good thing to have. A friend of mine who I went for a drive with in this car the other day commented that he felt like it was a bit like a car you'd rent while you're on holidays. It's a very easy car to drive, it's not scary in any way, you can literally just get in and feel comfortable behind the wheel in a matter of minutes. The Impreza is indeed an impressive combination of good driving dynamics, value and technology. If only it was just a little bit faster and had a tiny bit more power, it could be a contender.